Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending our summer webinar series. Today we have Chris Reemer along with Paul Evans from Matthews Paint. They're going to explore products, new technologies, and tips to enhance your production process. Chris, it is all you.
Good deal. Well, I'll get started. First, let me say thank you for joining the call today and thank you for your business. We do appreciate it. Um, we'll cover a few things today. Dwayne, one of our technical guys, was looking to join us, but he will not be able to make it today. So I'll be starting the call out, but Paul will be leading us. Paul is one of our technical people, and I'll let him introduce himself in a minute. Why don't we go to the next slide there? As I said, I'm Chris Reemer. I'm the sales manager for Matthews Paint, overseeing pretty much everywhere that we're trying to sell it, which mostly right now is the US and Canada, but we are in the process of looking to expand both into the Caribbean and elsewhere. I've been with PPG for about 12 years and been with Matthews Paint for about a year and a half. When I came on, we were working our way out of some inventory issues, but things have improved dramatically there. We have reduced our back orders by over 97%. So hopefully everybody's getting and seeing paint. I'll let Paul introduce himself here, and then we'll move on to the next slide.
Great, Chris. Thank you. So yeah, Paul Evans, I'm a technical service representative with Matthews, 25 years with PPG and the last 6 with Matthews, and absolutely love this industry, love this company. My job is technical support, so that's everything from technical phone calls to training classes to in-shop support. We do paint manager installations on site, and we get to do these webinars and share information this way. So love the job, and love you all. Appreciate you for being here today.
So the format for today is going to be pretty informal. If you have questions that you would like to type into the chat box, please do so. If you want to raise your hand, we'll try to answer them as we go along. We'll also have a Q&A session at the end. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. The goal here is to help inform you on what we've got going on that's new, and in relation in particular to our product consolidation and the Matthews Paint Manager. For our product consolidation, as we look back over our product line, our goal is to try to streamline what we have in our warehouse, what we're manufacturing, what's in our distributor's warehouse, and what's in your shop. So you don't need to have a wide array of products to do the business you need to do. The goal is try to keep it as simple as possible. The good news is over the last few years, we've come up with some better options, and Paul will cover those as we move forward. And we'll walk through them one by one. Again, should you have any questions, please ask. The other thing that we're very excited about is our Paint Manager. This came to market about 2 years ago, and we kind of soft started with it about a year and a half ago. And over the last year have been working very hard to get them out into the field. This is a software system alone, or a software and hardware system, depending on the system that works for your shop. And the neat part about it is it gives you access to about 100,000 different colors. And I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to steal the thunder of what it can do, but it's very helpful in retrieving formulas and getting you moved there, as well as some features that we have available in there related to job tracking, inventory, other reports that are available. So you might ask, why are we consolidating products now? We've learned a lot over the last few years in relation to inventory shortages, raw material availability, and found that we had several products that were either almost the same or very similar. And the goal was, how can we simplify our system to make it easier for you guys to use in the field and easier for our customers to understand. Also, as we look at it, we picked the products that had the best characteristics. So we made sure that the products that you're turning out are going to be top quality also. And as we look to plan and move to the future here, you'll see there were some primers that we looked at that had some heavy chromate in them that we needed to, or heavy metals chromate in it that we needed to address. And that's part of some of the changes that we'll be making. Better products, I kind of jumped ahead on this one a little bit. Some of these are more environmentally friendly, easier to comply with the EPA in relation to chromate in particular. multi-purpose. In some cases, we have a primer that's going to work for you as a primer and a reflective coating. Rather than having to do 2 coats, it can save you some production time in the shop. Also, less products to stock really in the end. The goal here is how can you achieve what you need to achieve with having less dollars tied up in inventory and still giving you the top quality that you've come to expect from Matthews. With that, we did send a letter out early, well, I guess mid-January here, 7/12. And in that, we did list a description of the products that were being discontinued, as well as the replacement product, if there was one available. In most cases, we did have a crossover to, as I said, a better product, and we will cover those as we start going through some of the product changes that we've had. And here, I'll let Paul take off from here. Take it from here, Paul.
All right, very good. Thanks, Chris. So I'm going to back up one slide. I know this letter has a lot of information on it. There's a lot of part numbers. We're going to go through these in the next slides. But what I wanted to point out, Chris mentioned it, some of these don't have a direct replacement. But in many cases where it says none, that just simply means that particular activator, 74, 735, for example, that only went with the 74, 734. So once that product goes away, we don't need the activator. We do have a replacement for the primer itself. So we actually have a good offering, good substitution in many cases. Well, I'm going to say in all cases, better products available. So let's go through those. We'll start out with cleaners. We currently have 4 cleaners. One of those is going to be eliminated. But the 45330 Speed Prep, most of our shops are familiar with this, probably been around the longest of all of our cleaners. Solvent-based cleaner works fantastic. That's not going anywhere. 6428, also been around a long time. It's a plastic prep. This is an isopropyl alcohol cleaner, also has anti-static properties, excellent cleaner for plastics, any static-prone substrates. Then we had 6405, low VOC cleaner. Now, I can tell you, I was around with PPG when that product first came out, and that was in the PPG line before Matthews adopted it. And at that time, probably 15 to 20 years ago, it was a good product. Today, moving forward, we have 6410, the last one on the list, low VOC pre-cleaner. This is actually the top of the line waterborne cleaner from PPG. Is what our automotive shops are using. We, as in Matthews personnel, when we go to our PPG training facilities, we would use that 6410 and it worked so much better. So it's an improved version of the 6405. There's no reason to go, everything about it's better. No reason to go back to 6405. If your customers are using that, or if you all are using that, you're going to make this a very easy transition to the 6410. So we'll go from 4 cleaners down to 3, and 6410 would be the direct replacement for the 6405. Etch primers. This is a biggie. We currently have 6 etching primers. 4 of those are going to be discontinued. They have chromate, as Chris mentioned, which is a heavy metal. That is regulated by the EPA. Now, this is nothing new. This started about 15 years ago. And because of my background with PPG on the automotive side, I have gone through all of this as PPG had to move away from these chromated products. There's none other in our company other than these 4 that are still in our Matthews line. So when I came over to Matthews 6 years ago, I found out we still had these chromated products available. I was a little surprised, but I know why. Number one, our sign shops we're not targeted like the collision shops were from the EPA. So we were kind of under the radar. And these products, especially the very first one on the list, that PT filler 74760, people love that primer. I don't personally. I have reasons for that, but they like it because it's fast to dry, and it is has a very, very long pot life, so they can keep it mixed up. And most of the time, our customers end up abusing that because they just keep mixing fresh product, putting it on the old product. It all gets intermixed. So there's some bad habits that I've noticed over the years. But the bottom line is these are all chromated products. You can use them legally, but there's a lot of things the shop should be doing to make sure they're using them legally. And if they don't do all those things, for example, notifying the EPA, that's going to be a big one. If they haven't done that, they could face a lot of fines. So we're trying to watch out for our customers. Number one, give them a healthier alternative and one that is simpler to use without all the regulations. Also, these are all two-coat primers. Many of our customers only use one coat, but they are two-coat. To use them correctly, it would be a two-coat application. So there's little to no advantage. And the only real advantage is that long pot life, which to me, that's not really an advantage. I'd rather mix up fresh product every day and make sure it's always staying fresh. And the fact that it dries quick, a lot of people do look at that as an advantage. In my opinion, as a primer, I don't want it to dry so quick that it has a dry texture or dry overspray all over the object. I have no reason to go in and sand it between primer and paint. I want to just move on, prime it and paint it. So sometimes it's a change of habit, but we are going to give you some better offerings. So those offerings, we have two non-chromate etch primers. The first one is 74350. It is a 3.5 VOC non-chrome etch primer. We've had this product around for many years, longer than I've been with Matthews. So it's over 6 years old, environmentally friendly, fantastic coverage. This product covers extremely well, and in my opinion, gives you a much smoother finish than with the PT filler. And in reality, it gives you more fill. A lot of people don't believe that. They think the PT filler has more, but I can assure you with one coat of this product, you'll actually get more filling. But it doesn't sand as nice as the 74 or the PT filler. So again, don't sand it. It's designed to be sprayed wet on wet. That makes your shop more productive. The 274-535, the next one listed, that is the Brilliant White Primer. Notice they both take the same catalyst. The catalyst is in the parentheses 74-351. These are very similar products, basically the same chemistry. One is a green version. The 74-350 is an olive drab green. It's probably the only thing I don't like about it is actually the color. The Brilliant White is a nice, bright white. It's environmentally friendly. It can be used as a reflective interior coating. And by interior coating, I mean inside of a channel letter, inside of a light box, inside of a can, somewhere where you want that reflectivity. So technically, it's going to be inside of something, even though that box may be outside, but it can be used as a reflective coating. We do recommend 2 coats to get full reflectivity, but as an exterior primer, it's a 1-coat application. So there's 2 primers you can use, 2 different colors. They mix the same way, take the same catalyst. For my money, I like the Brilliant White. White is a really nice color primer for our industry. Epoxy primer. So currently we have 3 epoxy primers available. One of those is going to be going away, the 6007 SP. The catalyst is 6207 SP. If anybody's familiar with that primer, the one thing you will notice is that catalyst is extremely thick. It is difficult to pour. It is messy. I realize that paint can make a mess, but I like to be as clean as possible, and it's almost impossible with that product. It's actually fairly high VOC compared to some of our other primers, and that one is going to go away. Old technology, thick catalyst, 2-coat application, and it's lower in solids, so there's nothing to be gained by it. We do have 274-908 and 274-808. That's your white and black epoxy primers. Those have been around for quite a while. They are not going anywhere today. It's a 3-to-1-to-1 mix ratio. They are still a 2-coat application, 3.5 VOC. So there's some areas that's a little bit too high to use, and you are limited to using the exempt reducers to get there. So you got a few restrictions with that product. That moves us to the 2.1 VOC epoxy primer, 274-528, 274-530, 274-531. Catalyst is 274-529. That by far, hands down, is the best epoxy primer. It's actually my favorite primer, and it's the best one I've ever used. And I've been painting either with PPG or out in the industry for decades. I've used a lot of epoxy primer. This one is phenomenal. Available in the 3 colors I mentioned. They can be mixed together and you can get any shade in between. It's higher solids than the other primers. 1 or 2 coat application, I will tell you this, if you put it on correctly with the recommended fluid tip, 1 coat is all you need. But if you needed some extra film build, if you did have some damage or some areas that needed work, you could put 2 coats on. Let it set overnight. It sands really nice, even though it's not designed as a sandable primer. It's designed as a wet-on-wet primer. It's very productive. You can paint on it in about 30 minutes at 70 degrees with a 1 coat application. If you put it on heavy, you may need to wait longer. But usually at 70 degrees, 30 minutes, you're ready for top coat. You also have a long open window. I didn't put that on this slide, but it's a 4-day open window. That means you can prime it today, 4 days later, you can still put paint on it and not have to sand it. It will still stick. And it's the only primer we have that goes to stainless steel. So a lot of great features in that primer. That is the one that I recommend and have been recommending ever since I've been with Matthews. It's the one that I go to most often. Etch primers are great. They're fast. But if I have a choice, I go with epoxy. They're much more universal. Again, if I'm going too fast, if anybody has any questions, please holler out or put it in the chat. We'll try to address it as we go. Some other products that are going away, some other primers. We have 2, and the first one we'll talk about is U-Prime, which is 274-685. This is a urethane primer. Actually, it's a very nice looking primer. It sprays nice, it looks nice, but it is slow drying, very complicated mix ratio. And it requires an accelerator. And it's slow even with an accelerator. It's the only primer that we put an accelerator in, and it's still very slow. It had its place at one point. We don't sell a lot of it. Urethane primers are very big in the automotive world, but not so much in our industry. So we don't have a direct replacement. We don't have another urethane primer. You would just use either the etch or the epoxy primer, and that's going to work very well for you. The 281-500, we refer to that often as HR white or high reflective white. This was a great product in its time, but it was just for interior, meaning inside of channel letters, inside of light boxes, inside of light cans, anything to get reflectivity. It was not an exterior primer. So very limited use. Now that we have the 274-535 Brilliant White, there really is no need for that HR white anymore. That product will be going away. The replacement will be the Brilliant White etch primer that we talked about a few slides ago. So now you've got one primer that can be a reflective coating, and it can also be an exterior primer. It works extremely well. All right, some of our reducers. These are conventional VOC reducers. We currently have 5. We are going to get rid of the cool temp reducer. Now, this may shock some people. I can tell you that my entire career with PPG, I have been promoting staying away from cool temperature reducers, even in a cool environment. Because the bottom line is this: our products are generally built to go pretty fast. And if you're doing anything larger than 1 foot by 1 foot piece, you really need to go with a slower or a warmer temperature reducer, and they always work better. The problems we get most often are tiger stripes or uneven blotchy sheen. And when I get these phone calls, I always ask, what reducer are we using? 9 times out of 10, it's 6379 cool temp reducer. I've actually, even though I'm based out of Florida, I travel around the entire country, including Canada. I've been in some very cold environments. But usually, if you're in a cold environment, for example, Green Bay, Wisconsin, you're going to have heat in the shop. Any level of heat makes it very difficult to use that cool temperature reducer. So 45-280 works extremely well, all the way down to 60 degrees. That's our starting point. We want to maintain at least 60-degree ambient temperature and surface temperature. 45-280, even though we call it warm temp, all the way down to 60 works fantastic. So we will be changing the name. We'll be changing the temperature range on that to expand it all the way down. That's just a label change. The product isn't changing. The product works fantastic at those temperatures. You get above that, we have the 45-290. That's not going anywhere. 6396 hot temp, that's not going anywhere. And we have a retarder as well in the conventional line. All that information's on the data sheet. Eventually that 6379 will go away. But anybody that's ever heard me talk about reducers, they'll know one thing. I say always go one temperature range hotter than what you think you need, and life will be a lot better. So we believe this is a very positive change. There may be some people that struggle with that in the beginning. We can address that. It's just people don't like change, and I'm one of them, but I think this is a change for the better. When we look at our SV, this is our low VOC reducer. So we do have 3 lines: conventional, low VOC, and ultra low VOC. We're just talking about low VOC now. I always try to specify or clarify between low VOC and ultra low. In our low VOC line, we also refer to it as SVOC, there are 6 reducers currently available. Depending on the VOC limit that you have in your area, whether it's 3.5 pounds of VOC or 2.8, that will determine which of these reducers you will use. Again, with these cool temperature reducers, we don't need them as much as we think we do. We are eliminating the 6300 cool temp. We are going to keep the 6370. The bottom line is with low VOC reducers, we're more limited as to what we can put in that can. So that's why we don't have 5 options. We only have 3 options. So if we take away all the cool temp reducers, that's going to leave you with just 2 options. So we are going to keep the 6370 cool temp. So that means it can be used in areas that are 3.5 or 2.8. Doesn't matter. It's going to work just fine. So you'll have a total of 5 reducers to choose from rather than 6. And I don't believe that will be a difficult change for any of our customers. All right, now the VOC clear coats, again, this is actually part of the low VOC line, not ultra low. And these were carryovers from an old product line that we had years ago. It was referred to as VOC. Today, our low VOC line is referred to as SVOC. The VOC system has gone away except for these 3 products, 4 products if you count the catalyst. So we have the 282-208 gloss clear, the 281-228 satin clear, and the 282-260 Braco clear. Then the catalyst for all 3 is the 283-800. Those are all going away. Now, there's some reasons for that. Number one, we don't really need them. And it gets confusing when shops have these along with their SV system because they don't mix into the SV system. They can be applied over the SV, but they don't mix into the system. And the catalyst is different. And more often than not, somebody makes a mistake and puts the wrong catalyst in the wrong product. So to avoid confusion, we brought on the SV line, the SV208, which is the gloss clear, and the SV228, which is the satin version. The catalyst is 283-320. Same catalyst as the SVOC top coat system, and everything can be intermixed together. No issues, no concerns, no potential failures. So simplifies things, and it really makes it a lot less likely to screw something up by putting the wrong catalyst in. So those 3 that start with the 2.8, they are going to go away. The SV, it should be easy to remember because the SV clears go with the SV system. We have one semi-gloss clear. You know, this is really a nice clear. I've actually sprayed it quite a bit, but semi-gloss is not that popular in our industry. So we don't sell a lot of it. So we are going to discontinue the SOA 365. There is, if you need a semi-gloss, we actually have a formula that you can make. You can find this online or in our paint manager software. It is MP28886. 28886. I wasn't sure how many 8s I put in there, but it's right there on the screen. And that's a formula to make semi-gloss clear. by using your standard conventional satin clear and gloss clear and following this recipe. So it's much better to do that. And you've got the full range there. You can really make any gloss level in between, but this is a pre-built formula to get you to semi-gloss and takes all the guesswork out of it. So SOA 365 will be going away. Okay, accelerators. This is another big one. We have a lot of accelerators. Some of you might wonder why we have so many primers, so many etch primers, so many epoxy, so many accelerators. Well, Matthews and PPG as a whole, we've never been really fond of getting rid of products. If somebody's out there using it, we usually keep it. That's why we end up with so many products. Even though there's newer, better products available, the old ones tend to kind of linger. And we're just at a point now where we can't do that anymore. We've got to clean out some of these products that there's just no need for. So out of the 5 that are out there, let's talk about 47117. Probably it'll be the least familiar to you because it really is the least used. There is no pot life extender. It was designed for low VOC products, and pot life extender is a good thing, but it's high in VOC. So as you can see, the VOC of that product alone was 7.16. That's still pretty high, even without the pot life extender. The replacement would be MAP, M-A-P, LVA 117. It's part of our ultra low line, but it can be used in our other products as well. And we have documentation on our website and in our training manual and all the data sheets that lists out using all of these different accelerators, so you'll know exactly which ones you can use. The nice thing about LVA one, their question?
Paul, one of the things I just wanted to hit on, because we tend to be very specific on, our N series, our S series, our low, ultra low series. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, I think this is the only item that can cross over. Is that correct? The rest, and in SOA have some compatibility and there's no problem there. But other than that, we never use ultra low with other product lines.
That is a great point, and you're absolutely right. So when you see the MAP, the MAP designation before the part number, that lets you know it's part of the ultra low line. So that is the only product that does crossover. And again, it's on the data sheet, so you'll know we approve it. But you're right, none of the other MAP products will get intermixed with the conventional or the low VOC system.
Yeah.
With that, I will say one other thing about primers. It gets kind of confusing on our website because they are broken up by VOC, and there's an ultra low VOC category that you will use primers from that category. They just fell into the category because they happen to be so low in VOC. But that's another explanation for another day. If anybody ever has any concerns about which primers you can use, feel free to reach out to us. So great point, Chris. So the LVA 117 is the closest as far as strength goes. Neither one of those have pot life extender. That's what keeps the VOC low. And as you can see, at 0.02 pounds, it is incredibly low in VOC. So that is the better option if you're trying to hit a ultra low VOC number. In my opinion, that's the only time I would use it. We have 3 other accelerators listed below, and they can be used in almost every other circumstance. Again, always refer to the TDS. There are a few exceptions. 287, 437, for example, HS accelerator, standard strength, works great, and it works great in all of our product lines. And you can use it in ultra low. However, if you're trying to get that low VOC, that's when you've got to stay with the LVA 117. Sometimes people are using ultra low in an area that doesn't have that low VOC requirement. They're just using it because it's an environmentally friendly product, and there are some other advantages. 287, 484 turbo is my favorite accelerator. We call it enhancer. It's just a fancy word for accelerator, but it is extremely strong, 3 times stronger than 287, 437, and you use a third the amount. So very strong. There are some limitations as to where that one can be used. So refer to the technical data sheets, for the approved top coats. And then we have the SM166A. Again, extremely strong, it's twice as strong as turbo, and it's very limited. I'll tell you this, it only goes in the MAP Ultra Low LBS, the satin Ultra Low. That's the only product that actually can handle that tape-in accelerator. So for my money, if I need ultra low VOC, as far as really low VOC limits, MAP LVA 117 is your closest replacement. If I'm not locked into those low VOC numbers, I can look at the 287-437 or the 287-484, and they work really well together. They'll complement each other as part of a system, and then you're covered on pretty much anything you need to use. All right, that's going to bring us into our sign strip. So this is our strippable masket used for our faces, our sign faces. The lacrosse shops use this. Currently, we have 6 total. Here's another example of where Matthews has always tried to do what the customers requested of us. And if somebody wants a blue version and somebody wants another blue version, we have formulated it. And as you can see, we have 4 different blue versions, all just slightly different. So does it make sense to try to keep maintaining all of these different codes, all of these different colors? And this was one of the big issues we ran into the last few years with raw materials. And we learned, look, in order to keep the product stock, let's focus on one. That's going to be the Z57-451. Also is a blue, sign strip blue 2. Been around for quite a while. That is the one that we've decided to stay with. And you can see all of those sizes.
Yeah, and it's nearly 90% of our sales today. So, it was easy for us to look at it and say, we sell the 5727, once a year, whatever the case might be, or, when we looked at the sales numbers, we looked at what made sense to serve our customers best, just to have the one product. And we are making it available in all sizes. In fact, we've got gallons, pails, drums, and we're going to have a totes even available, and we've decided that hasn't been added, and I haven't shared that with you, Paul, yet. That was just decided yesterday. So If somebody needs a tote of it, we'll have a tote of it available. But most customers should be able to be served with that product in those sizes. We also will have a clear available. Well, I'm thinking other products, so forget it. I'm thinking something else. I'm thinking boot strip. Sorry.
Boot strip. There you go.
Yep.
That's okay.
I'm on to the next thing in my mind already.
There you go.
No, but in sign strip, this should serve what most everybody's using and familiar with.
Excellent. And that's the nice thing. We clean up some of these old ones that we're spreading our products all over the place. And then we can actually make decisions to make other products that we really need. So that's where the future is. All right. In the one-shot line, there was only one product out of this list. It was the 5004 vinyl primer. Don't know if anybody out there is using this. There is not a direct replacement. That is a waterborne primer. It's not flexible, so that was one of the limitations of it. There are other options depending on the project, but there's a couple different products out there in the one-shot line. There's the 4331010 tie coat. That is also a waterborne product. It is flexible too. Has a very long top coat window. We're actually told that it is indefinite. I never like to say that, because I feel like you should prime something and paint it. That's just my belief. So I'm only going to say it has a long top coat window. I won't tell you it's indefinite. The 274777 tie bond, that's a Matthews product. We are glad it is back in stock. That was one of the ones that held on at the end. That was really tough to get that one back on track, but we're doing very well now. It's a solvent-based product. Clear, it is flexible, and it's very fast. 5 minutes between coats. It's a 2 to 3 coat operation. After the last coat, 5 minutes, and you're ready for top coat. So those are options that can work depending on what your project is. So reach out if you need guidance in that area. and we'll do what we can to get you pointed in the right direction. All right, so that's actually all of the product consolidation slides. Hopefully that helps. This PowerPoint will be available, so you'll have it as a reference. And I guess there's no questions coming up, so we can move on to the next topic.
Yeah. Anything before we do regarding product consolidation, anything come into mind for anybody? Or we'll also take a moment at the end. If something comes up between now and then that you'd like to visit, please let us know.
Apparently, I have done such a thorough job of answering their questions before they can even ask them. That's what I'm going to go with. That's my story. All right.
Let's stick with that, Paul.
So Paint Manager, let's talk about Paint Manager. This is, we've talked about this in some past webinars, so this is just kind of a recap. It is a comprehensive software. It really does a lot. First and foremost, looking up colors quickly and searching all of our databases in one swoop, one search bar. It's amazing. The online color retrieval that we currently have, and we still have, it's not going away anywhere or anytime soon. So if you're using that, that's no issue at all. But it can be a little cumbersome. It is powerful. There's a lot of information out there, but just to find certain colors, when you start searching through different color systems and knowing where to go, it can take a little bit of time. The Paint Manager software does it all from one search field, and it's a very quick color lookup. You'll get all the results. It's checking all of our different databases at one time, and it really makes things a lot easier. Sometimes you can get back too many results, and there's ways to get around that and identify what you need. It searches every database at one time, so it's fantastic in that regards. Accuracy in mixing. While you're pouring these toners on a scale, you're not just following a piece of paper or even just following a computer screen. You're pouring them on the scale. That scale is tied to the software. It's recording everything you're doing. It's going to let you know. It actually will not let you advance the next color until you have hit the target. And if you go over the target, there will be an option, or there'll be a warning that you've over poured, and it gives you some options. You can either waste the mix and start over. You can rebulk the rest of the formula and add the other additional amounts of the other toners to get them up to that same level. Or you can ignore it and move on. But whatever you do, it will track it. It'll keep track of it. It'll let you know what the best option is. Does it make sense to waste it and start over, or is it more cost effective to just rebulk it up for a couple of ounces? It does it all for you, and it's better than throwing the product away. So that is a fantastic feature. Repeatability. Once you mix it accurately the first time, you can make it accurate every single time, whether you're making 10 gallons or 10 ounces. Well, 10 gallons, our scales don't go that high, so that was an exaggeration. Let's say that if you're making a gallon or you're making a couple of ounces, you're making the same formula. It will help you be extremely accurate.
One of the things that I think is really neat about it, if you're doing
everything you're doing.
Yep. One of the things that's pretty neat about it is if you're doing a sample, say you just need to paint something the size of a sheet of a paper or send out a color sample, you can hit a button on there once you've picked your color to make the minimum amount of paint that you need to make. So you're not mixing up, I've only been in the sign industry for about a year, but the number of shops I've been in that have quarts and quarts and paint sitting in the back room that, they mixed up for this or mixed up for that. Ideally, you won't need to find yourself in that situation. You won't have the waste. You won't have the extra paint sitting around. You'll be able to say, hey, I'm just painting this little widget or sample, and what's the minimum? And it'll bring it down to, I've seen even less than an ounce of paint that it'll tell you can make depending on what the color is. And the neat part is it does all the calculations. It makes sure you have enough of each of the toners to still hit that color at that minimum number, or at, hey, I need a quart, or I need 2 quarts, whatever the case might be.
Absolutely. Our customers don't get paid to mix up paint and store it. And I go into so many shops that you can't even count the number of cans that are on shelves and cabinets. Most of them don't have labels on them, which makes them illegal, by the way. So Mix up what you need, use what you need. It saves a lot of waste and saves a lot of money.
Yeah. And the neat part is this will spit a label out for each one. So you need another label, you need 3 labels, you tell it what you need, it'll print it out for you.
All right, so I got ahead on a couple of these items, but a few other things you can do besides mixing up your color. You can actually make your primer, you can make your clear coat right on the scale. So you're measuring out those ingredients. So one thing to note, and this is an important tip. Every once in a while, probably once a year, I find somebody that is mixing things across the scale at a 3-to-1 mix ratio. That means they're pouring off 100 or 300 grams of paint, 100 grams of catalyst, and 100 grams of reducer. And they believe they're mixing it at a 3-to-1 mix ratio. They're doing it by weight. And when we do 3-to-1, that is a volumetric measurement, not a weight measurement. The only way for the scale to work in that scenario is for all the ingredients to weigh exactly the same amount. And that's not the case. However, Paint Manager, the software, it knows exactly the density of each product. So it knows how to do the math. So you can weigh it accurately on the scale. It'll tell you exactly how much of each ingredient to put in, including accelerator, which is huge. I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. And you don't have to, there's no guessing involved. So it works extremely well. You can take your paint, once your paint's mixed up, you can add catalyst and reducer as part of the formula. So you make it ready to spray, all on the scale, all with the software, everything tracked to the job. Custom formulas, very, very easy to make custom formulas. Matter of fact, you can just pull up the formula itself. While you're looking at it, there's a button on the screen that says Make It Custom, and you click that button. It dumps it all into an editable custom formula where you can make your changes. You can delete a toner, add more of a toner, add a different toner. You can do all that, then save it, give it a name, give it a number, and it's now your custom formula. So it all works very easy. Reporting, this is huge for our shops that are in areas with VOC regulations, where they have to do VOC reporting. The system is going to keep track of all that for you. As long as you're mixing everything on the scale, utilizing the software, it'll capture everything, and you'll be able to spit out a report once a week, once a month, whatever you need. Job costing, sundries, inventory, these are other features. We call these advanced features. But how nice is it to have your inventory built in? And as soon as it knows as you use these products. And as soon as you drop below your minimum, it lets you know, hey, you need to order more. Or if you run out and haven't ordered more or haven't updated your system, it's going to let you know you don't have enough of this toner to finish this color. So a lot of great features. We're just really starting to scratch the surface with this. Our customers are getting it more and more every day. I'm involved in these installations almost weekly, and it's really taking off and doing a fantastic job. All right. So cost of Paint Manager. If you are interested, get a hold of your Matthews rep. There is a software bill, $150 a year, billed through our distributors, and needs to be a PO in place. The equipment, shops, if they qualify, and you'll see those shop qualifications down below, really can get about $8,000 to $10,000 worth of equipment that they can get at no cost if they meet those qualifications. Some shops will opt out for just a software-only option. Still take advantage of the color lookup, the ability to make any quantity they want. They're just not, it's not going to be tied to the scale, so it's not going to capture everything they're doing. But it might be another option for some of our customers. So any shop that has sales basically of $2,500 per month in Matthews purchases, therefore we can go ahead and give them the whole system, this computer, scale, monitors, and smaller shops might just qualify for the software only option. So that's
and
a little bit
we're very close to having a system together where this will be billed to the shop directly. We have just started the beta test in one of our other business units, and it will remove the need for a PO to go to the distributor and then from the distributor to us. So that's something we'd hoped to launch last year when we started kicking this off. Unfortunately, IT restraints required us to work through a few more things, but I'm planning by the end of this year, and it sounds like IT is with me on this, that we'll have everything set up where you'll be able to pay this like a subscription fee, either monthly or annually, once you would have it installed.
That will be so awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. We have dedicated support for Matthews software. So this paint manager software has been around a long time. The automotive side of PPG has been using this. This is not something new. We just decided it was time for our shops to start taking advantage. But when you call in, there are differences between the two systems, and you have to make sure you let them know, hey, I'm with Matthews. It's Matthews Paint Manager, and we have dedicated support people to help us when we need it. All right. So if there's any questions about Paint Manager, please throw them out there in the chat or just holler out. And I got a couple more quick topics to roll through, and then we'll do a quick Q&A. So some other tips and tricks. Accelerator mixing charts. Number one, we have a bunch of accelerators. We already talked about that. Is it important to use accelerators? Well, in my opinion, accelerators can make you very productive. If you use them correctly, they put a lot of control in the painter's hands. So the big issue is, how do we mix them? And I always ask the question, how much accelerator do you use? And the common answer I get is, well, I do a capful or a half a capful or a splash or a glug or a trickle. They have all different ways, and not one of them is the right answer. So typically, all of our data sheets, all of our technical data sheets will give you a full load of accelerator per ready-to-spray quart of that product. Maybe it's a ½ ounce per ready-to-spray quart. Maybe it's an ounce. Maybe it's an ounce and a half per ready-to-spray quart. But the bottom line is our customers aren't always mixing 32 ounces of paint. A customer asked us one day, why don't you make a chart that gives us all these different increments? So we did that. And we use Paint Manager software to actually do this. We use that tool to come up with the numbers. Paint Manager does all this for you. If you don't have Paint Manager, this is a piece of paper that you can print, put it over your scale, and you can read the chart very simply and weigh out those accelerators by grams right on your scale. We have a total of 8 versions. So for the N series and SOA, we have that in grams and milliliters. So you can do it by volume or weight. SVOC, the same thing. And then MAP LVS and MAP LVG, they act differently. Those are, even though they're ultra low top coat system, the satin and the gloss act differently. So there's some differences there in how you can use accelerators. So just make sure you're getting the right document. If you have any questions, please call us. We'll make sure you find it on the website. They're right there under additives, but you got to go through a couple clicks to get there. And here's a little bit bigger version. I know that one a little hard to see. This will just give you an idea. Whatever you mix up in a mixing cup, for example, you have a 3-to-1 scale on your mixing cup. You decide how much, what number are you going to go to? What quantity do you need? Is it a 4 mix? Is it a 5 mix? A 7 mix? Wherever you end up with your 3-to-1 mix, turn the cup. Every plastic mixing cup, certainly ours do, and even competitive versions will have an ounce scale on the side of it. Turn that cup, see how many ounces are actually in there, go to this chart. So you're going to look at your ready to spray, top coat or clear. How many ounces do you have? Determine which one of these 4 accelerators. I've already mentioned the fact that the 2 for my money are going to be the 287-437 and the 287-484. If I'm not trying to hit that ultra low VOC number. So whichever one of those you're using, I like Turbo 287-484. If I have 22 ounces of paint in my cup and I'm using Turbo, I'm going to weigh in 9.9 grams. Accurate every time you weigh it, it's perfect. And the real beauty is if I make a large quantity to start with and I run out and I don't need as much the second time, maybe I just need, oops, sorry, got a little carried away there. Maybe I I wanted to go all the way down to the bottom of that. That's just a snip. So let's say I only need 14 ounces this time. That's the bottom of the chart that you can see. The chart goes all the way down to 1 ounce, but I couldn't fit it on the slide. So I only need 6.3 grams in that 14 ounces. So however many ounces you have, you're going to get the right mix ratio with your accelerator. I think these are extremely valuable tools. Again, if you have Paint Manager, it's going to do this for you. This is the next best thing. So make sure your customers, or make sure you all have these charts, and they'll work fabulous. All right, the last thing I wanted to talk, I did not want to do that. Let's go one more here. All right, there we go. One of the big questions we get on a regular basis, how do I wrap? What's the proper way to wrapping and protecting a sign, a paint, whatever I have fresh paint on? This is one of the best products we have found. It's called Protect Right 8510. It's designed to protect partially cured paint coatings, so it's a protective film, but it breathes. I've tested this many times, put it on very quickly, much quicker than I would normally recommend, just to see what would happen. It does a great job. Bubble wrap, foam, plastic, anything, shrink wrap, anything that doesn't breathe is going to damage the finish. I've seen what was a beautiful paint job destroyed and look very terrible because it was wrapped up with the wrong product. So if you're wrapping and shipping, this is a product I would recommend. You can actually reach out to this company and get a sample. So something I recommend and something to consider. So that was the last tip and trick that I wanted to throw out there. We got a few minutes, so Q&A. What questions do you have?
I just had a question about when we're working with like mill aluminum, you guys always say to like abrade as necessary. Can you kind of talk about like what you mean by that, and if it's necessary to use like to sand an entire halo lit channel letter with 120 grit sandpaper? Like are we over sanding? Like what would be the process for that?
That is a great question. Are you familiar with our substrate guide on our website?
A little bit. I have your book in front of me.
Okay. So, for example, you're going to generally see like aluminum, a recommendation of 180 to 320 sanding grit. With aluminum, you don't need to go coarser than that unless you're trying to repair a scratch or a gouge. Just for normal sanding, normal abrading, I'm a big fan of 180. It also depends on what kind of sander you're using. If you're using an interface pad, a fine cutting DA with a foam pad with 180 probably cuts more like 220, but that's a real good range, 180 to 220. You go beyond that, you're actually doing more sanding than you need. The idea is you don't need to go deep, you just need to go nice and uniform. And equally as important as the sanding is the cleaning. And that's cleaning before and after sanding. Make sure you get those oils, especially if you get something that is mill finished or brushed. Those brushes can get so much oil in them and contaminants, and they drive them right down into those scratches. So cleaning is critical in any of those substrates. So does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Just real quick, would sanding, would abrading that much still be necessary when using the etching primer?
So we still recommend it. Listen, etching primer does etch. That's the whole goal. It actually has an acid. It's going to react with the bare metal. But we get concerned if everything's not just right, if the metal's not perfectly clean, the etch primer may not do what it's supposed to do. That's why we always recommend sanding the exterior surfaces. Now, the brilliant white as a reflective coating inside of a channel letter or a light box, no need to abrade. Clean it, prime it, you're good. But any exterior primer, we always recommend sanding. It's just a good practice. Don't over sand, but sand in that range of 180 to, you can go up to 320. I think 320 is a little fine, a little slow, in my opinion, on bare metal. but I do 180 or 220. That works really well, and that's what I'm comfortable with.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. Any other questions we have regarding either product discontinuation or paint manager, anything relating to the Matthews product line? Oh, I've got another question up here.
I had a question. How does like the Scotch-Brite pads work for abrading?
They work great. Now there's different Scotch-Brite pads. So if I'm doing bare aluminum, I'm going with the red Scotch-Brite pad. Now, even those, there are different, the ones in the box compared to the ones on the roll. The ones in the box seem to be a little meatier. They seem to go longer. I don't know if they're really any more aggressive. I just think they last longer. But generally, the thing about a Scotch-Brite pad is it scratches. And that's what we need for adhesion. We need a scratch. It does not cut. What I mean by that is if you have dirt in your paint, I commented earlier about the PT filler that people love. They love to walk in there and they sand it with a Scotch-Brite pad. Well, all you're doing really is wiping the dust off of it. It's not cutting dirt. It'll scratch, but it won't level. So that's the only limitation with the Scotch-Brite pad. If all you're trying to do is scratch something up, I'm a big fan of Scotch-Brite pads. If I'm trying to actually level out some dirt or some trash, that's when you need a physical piece of sandpaper to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we get the ones on the roll, the 3M in red. I have them in fine, medium, and heavy.
Yeah,
Great.
and some of those, some of their terminology, I always kind of didn't agree with how they described it, but generally the red pad puts down a good scratch. The roll is fine. I just find the ones in the box I think last a little bit longer, but you're doing fine with what you're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Well, we have a question from Jonathan Knight. Jonathan?
Yep. So on the retarder, what happens to the paint if you do not mix it as a 50-50 ratio? Does it stop the cross-linking in the paint, or is it does it affect the matting or the gloss levels?
Well, it can affect the gloss. I'll answer both those questions. So first of all, it really won't affect the cross-linking long term. It'll slow it down because it's keeping it wet longer.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a solvent. So all of our solvents, all of our reducers are a blend of different ingredients, and they have what's called tail solvent. Tail solvent is what stays in the film the longest, and retarder is like straight tail solvent. So you're putting all that slow stuff in there. If it's hot, it's going to eventually come out of the film. Cross-linking is going to continue to do its thing. I'm sorry, because you asked two questions and I separated them. What was the second part of your question?
If it was more of a concern with gloss levels.
Gloss level, very good. So, and that all depends on, are you trying to achieve a full gloss? So here's the deal. Let's go with full gloss first. Retarder is going to make it nice and wet, make it lay out better. And as long as it's in a booth with air movement over it, it can actually give you a nice gloss. It'll help improve the gloss. Now, if you turn the booth off, and I see a lot of our shops do that, they get done, they walk out, a couple minutes later, they turn it off, it's just sitting there, then it's going to die back because that tail solvent is taking so long to get out of there. With the satin sheen, it actually can kind of work the other way. The slower a satin sheen, in most cases, it can kind of raise that gloss level. When satin dries really quick, you use the wrong reducer, that's too cool, it'll actually get very dull and flat, lower than satin. So it can kind of raise a satin sheen and it can kind of lower a gloss sheen somewhere in the middle, depending on how you're using it. So it will work. You're gonna notice it. I've done it before just to test it, and it just takes longer to come out of the film. It's gonna stay wet a lot longer. 50-50 mix works really good in high heat. Remember, I'm used to high heat. I mean, most of the places I go are hot, and 50-50 mix works really good. But if you did use a full load, it's just going to take longer, and it's going to let you know. You're going to look at it and see that it's staying wet. Just keep the air moving, keep it in a closed environment, and it will eventually come out of there.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Oh, you got it.
I know we're at the top of the hour here. Any other questions or anything else that anybody has? I guess what I'd recommend is, certainly feel free to reach out to Paul and Dwayne, our technical team, or you can reach out to your local sales rep or your Tube Light Denco rep. We're all here to help serve the shops, and whatever we can do. If we don't know the answer, we know guys who know the answer. So we'll dig into that for you. And I really want to say thank you all for your time today. Thank you, Paul, for a great presentation there. And all of you for your business and continued support. We really do appreciate it and look forward to a long partnership with you.
Awesome.
Well,
Thanks, everyone.
Chris
Johnson?
and Paul. Thank you everyone for attending. If anyone has any other questions or do want more information, you can contact us at marketing@tubelight.com. Again, we just want to say thank you everyone for attending and hope everyone has a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.